Good evening and welcome everybody. And I echo Shamika's congratulations. We are delighted that you are thinking about joining our community, and we're delighted to spend some time with you this evening to encourage you to join our community because there are lots of great things happening here. This is a good choice for you. I do want to acknowledge that, like you folks all know, that because we're not in person, because these are unprecedented times. And so I recognize that there's some milestones some of you are not able to have during your senior year. And my hope is that, we can partner to create some positive memories to kind of make up for some of the ones that you're not going to be able to have this year. But I also want to thank you folks for shaping this session. This is your session. This really is you ask and we're delivering. All of the themes you will hear from tonight are themes that you came up with. These are things that you said you wanted to hear more about. And we have excellent presenters, a great esteemed panel this evening. We're gonna hear from excellent students. As they speak to you, they will introduce themselves, but you will hear from our excellent students, Carmen and Melissa. We have fabulous faculty here. Dr. Gentles-Peart is here, Dr. Prado is here, and Dr. Allen will join us during the session. We are delighted to have an alumni that we are incredibly proud of, Deputy Secretary of State, Melissa Husband. And we also have one of the key anchors outside the classroom for you, our Assistant Director of Multicultural Student Initiatives, Takara. And we created Takara's position about a year ago because we really wanted to intentionally focus on the needs of students of color, first generation students, and low income students. So Takara has been doing some excellent work since she came and is one of the members of the team of the Intercultural Center that you will hear more about. So with that said, we're looking forward to your questions and we're looking forward to getting into our conversation tonight. I would like to get started with where we should be starting, right? You folks want to know about how you can affirm your identity on campus as an ALANA student, and you want to know what the classroom experience is like. So we're going to start with the right people to explain a little bit more about the classroom experience and about moving around on campus as an ALANA student. And we're going to introduce our students and have them tell you all about life on campus. So Carmen and Melissa, please take it away.
Hi, my name is Melissa Calvo. I'm a sophomore at Roger Williams. I'm a public relations major. I used to be the public relations chair for MSU for 3 semesters, and I've been involved with the barber shop, even though it's a club for guys of color. But I help them with writing and just organization. So I kind of just jump all around.
Hi guys, my name is Carmen. I'm a junior here. I use she, her, hers pronouns. I'm also a secondary ed and history double major. As a student here, I've seen a lot of how the university, in terms of their diversity and equity and inclusion, like program and initiatives have progressed since I was a freshman. And I can really say that they're really here for you guys and all the right resources in every aspect. Since being here, I always feel welcomed here and I always feel heard, and that's like the great thing about it, especially having like an ALANA session like this. Your voices matter. So I can say and vouch just like Melissa, like that being a student here, that you're important and that your voices are heard, and there are great things that are going on campus, like getting involved and things like the Intercultural Center, which I'm sure people are going to talk about, and also different diverse clubs and orgs that you can join, as well as, being an orientation advisor or a resident assistant, all that. So there's a lot you can do here. So.
Excellent, thank you folks. And so when you're not having fun outside the classroom and learning outside the classroom, you're of course spending lots of time in the classroom. And so I would like to invite Dr. Gentles-Peart to talk about courses and kind of engagement in the classroom.
Hello everyone and welcome. Thank you for joining us. So for many faculty at RWU, our teaching practices are explicitly grounded in equity. That is, we believe that the mission of higher education is not only to deliver the material, but it's also to inspire students to question social injustices and to affirm identities that have been previously excluded from higher education, and also to help dominantly positioned students to confront the systems of privilege that have benefited them to the detriment of others. So we offer many kinds of courses that explicitly speak to that. We have our gender and sexuality studies minor that students can explore gender inequities as well as gender justice. We have specific courses as well. So I teach in the communication and media studies program. And in that program, for example, you can take intercultural communication, which is about interacting across difference. I am happy to say that I'm teaching a course called Roots Rock Reggae in the fall, where we're going to be looking at how reggae music is not just, a fun, sun and sand kind of music, but it's also about social protest and protest against colonialism. My colleague, Dr. Aaron Allen, who will come on later, he's teaching a course as well called Love and Hip Hop, where he's also looking at how hip hop can promote Black love. We also have a gender justice course called Me Too, and a critical writing course which looks at white language supremacy. So there are tons of different kinds of courses on campus that center justice and center social justice.
Excellent. Thank you, Dr. Gentle Spirit. Make me want to take a class, maybe be a student again. Excellent. I would also like to invite Dr. Prado to talk about a popular minor on campus, a Latin American and Latino Studies minor and core concentration.
Thank you, Dr. Lambert. How are you? How is everybody? So I have the great pleasure of teaching about Latin American countries, about all kinds of interdisciplinary issues, and about Latinx communities. That's my background. I'm originally from Brazil, and a lot of the faculty who teach in this program, which offers a minor and a core concentration, are faculty that themselves are Latinos, and they come from all over the place. We have people from Argentina, from Colombia, Mexico, and of course, a lot of us spend time not only doing research, but we also love taking students abroad so they can study with us and make those connections. Connections sometimes with their own ancestry, sometimes with issues that they're just curious about, and start seeing how everything comes together. So I, for example, take students to the Dominican Republic, and I also take students to the Brazilian Amazon, where we study environmental justice. So just like Dr. Gentle-Spirit mentioned, a lot of our courses are linked to issues of social justice and environmental justice and equity. So those courses can be taught in a variety of disciplines. And if you decide to explore the Latin American and Latino Studies minor, one of the things that could benefit you is if you happen to already speak Spanish or Portuguese, because those languages, of course, then count. And you would need only to prove competency in the language, and you'd already be a long way into completing the minor, which would be 6 courses in there.
Excellent. Thank you so much. One of the things that we are really passionate about at Roger Williams University is high impact practices. And these are activities that really expand the capacity of students. They help them develop the skills, the knowledge, and the abilities that employers are looking for. So things like critical thinking skills, self-awareness, the ability to be reflective, the ability to step outside and think about what you're thinking about. Employers are really looking for this, the ability to wrap your hands around complexity. And so high impact practices have been proven to help develop these capacities in students. And what I love about the research is that these activities are good for all students, but they are particularly impactful for students from underrepresented backgrounds and ALANA students and first generation students. So we embrace high impact practices with everything we have. You see some examples of high impact practices on the slide. Writing intensive courses, yes, right, it's good for you. Live in learning communities, first year experiences, research, internships, and of course, study abroad. Right, so these they're intensive, they really expand your capacity, and they're fun. So I'm going to invite Dr. Prado back to talk about a recent study abroad experience and a course that she's been teaching for a long time. But before she tells you, let's show you a little bit about this trip.
So there you have it. That's a typical day at study abroad in the Dominican Republic. So that video was produced by a journalism student, one who is about to graduate, and along with a couple other journalism students, they decided they wanted to share a little bit of what we do when we go abroad. Many of our study abroad opportunities are linked to community engagement opportunities. We have partners in different countries. So when we go in, we're not just like flying in and visiting or touring. We're going to places where you couldn't go unless you had good friends on the ground or family on the ground. And we are all about not only learning and understanding the issues of the place, but also about giving back, because that's just part of the nature of what we do at Roger. We really pay it forward, and wherever we go, we try to make it so that we are learning, but also we are bringing some of that knowledge back with us, and at the same time making sure that our partners on the ground are also gaining something from that exchange. It's what we call fair trade community engagement. So ideally, a win-win for everybody. And in this particular case, what you saw in the Dominican Republic also showcases the work that the journalism students do. We have a digital first journalism program. So if you were to come abroad with us, you would have the use of GoPros and cameras, and you'd be able to learn about how to do great photography and great video. That's one of the things. However, if you go to Jamaica, which is another course we have, you would be studying psychology, and you'd be staying in a community and helping people figure out what the issues are within the families and the communities, and how everybody can learn about public health and about making yourself useful, right? And helping your community grow. If you go to other countries, the experience will be different. So the topics change, but the opportunities continue to be many. And that's always because we do it with this mindset of fair trade, everybody in a win-win situation.
Thank you, Dr. Prado. And having had the pleasure of joining the class, I can say it is possible to have fun on the beach and learn more than you ever have, right? It's possible to do both things because we were able to do both of those things in January. Okay, so you know, if you're looking at Shamika's background, you are having some FOMO, right? Because you're seeing our beautiful campus. And if you visited campus, you know that campus is beautiful, right? There's this lovely waterfront campus, and Bristol, Rhode Island is a wonderful waterfront town. I wouldn't say city, it's a town. But you're in a larger ecosystem, right? Providence, Newport, the East Bay. So I would like to invite Deputy Secretary Melissa Husband to talk a little bit about the community.
Sorry, just realized I was on mute. Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for having me. So, Ami, do you want me to talk about the alumni of color, or you want me to just talk about the community in general?
The community, about Providence and Providence.
So Providence is a really dynamic city. It really has a pretty big bang for its buck. It's really compact, but it's really easy to maneuver. Providence has some of the best restaurants in the country. We have a lot of walkable and bikeable areas. There are a lot of events that happen throughout the year. We're used to the winter time, so we even have great events during the winter. I think one of the greatest parts about Providence and Rhode Island in general is that we are genuinely a community. There are so many people that know each other in the city of Providence. You will experience people who are just friendly and willing to just help if you're downtown and you can't figure out what you're doing, if you're taking the bus. It's very transportation friendly. Public transportation goes anywhere and everywhere in the city of Providence across the state. And it's really easy to maneuver. So I think those are really the highlights in Providence. It's a great city. It has fantastic arts and culture, which is another fantastic thing. There are a lot of different universities downtown, so you kind of get in the mix of other college students. You'll see a variety of people. So there's Black people, there's Spanish people, there's white people, there's you will run into pretty much any ethnic and all ethnic groups possible because of the universities that are down there. So I would say that Providence, for me, I've lived here for 43 years. I love it. I still live here. I raise my kids. I work in the city, and I absolutely adore everything about Providence. And I'm sure that if you decide to come here, you will love it, and you will probably want to stay.
Thank you, Melissa. I do think that we really are in a unique kind of situation where you have very easy access, right? The number 45 bus, I'm not a fan of commuting. So like I take that 45 bus when I go to Providence, and you take it 45 minutes later, you're in downtown Providence. And then you also have access to all of the pieces, you know, on the water. I would also say that 30 minutes in the other direction, you're in Newport, Rhode Island. And Newport, Rhode Island, besides having mansions, is also a very rich community, lots of cultural communities there. It's diversifying rapidly. So the mansions are there, but there's also lots of awesome things. If you want quaint New England, Newport is another place to kind of explore. So thank you very much, Melissa, for providing that perspective. The other theme you folks wanted to hear about is mentoring and support. And that's critical. If I were a student, I would be asking all kinds of questions about mentoring and support. And so I'd like to invite Takara to talk about that.
All right, I also had to get myself unmuted. So I am the Assistant Director for Multicultural Student Initiatives, playing a large role in support for ALANA, students of color, first generation students. One of those programs is the SOAR program. So it is a program that supports first year students who are the first in their families to go to college. It is a program to essentially help navigate and create a smooth transition, providing the tools and the necessary resources for students once you're on campus. So questions with financial aid, academic support, tutoring center, counseling center, and just kind of being one central place for that. You also get paired with a kind of like a peer mentor, so a student mentor, so somebody who has already been on campus and kind of knows the ropes a little bit. You'll also get paired with a faculty mentor. So we are really building the community within the program, but also building the community beyond the program. So if you don't have access to me or you don't have access to your peers in the program, you can then go to, okay, I know this faculty mentor, or they hooked me up with another faculty. So you're really expanding your resources throughout the entire campus. And you can earn points, and those points also get you an award toward your tuition. So that's always super helpful. So programs for SOAR, as well as other multicultural initiatives, are located within the Intercultural Center, as well as international students and queer and trans students. And the Intercultural Center not only houses my office, but it also has a full kitchen, a full living room, study space throughout the building. We've got games, we've got Uno on Friday that gets really live. But also we are working on building programs and supporting students. Those programs are student-led. It's an amazing place to be where you can show up with all of your identities. So it's amazing to see students of color who also identify as queer or trans or asexual or bisexual. However you choose to identify, you have one space where you can show up with with all of who you are and have yourself be accepted. Roger Williams is also a very special campus because not only do you have the Intercultural Center to show up and be who you are as you are, but there is also the Q track, so the Queer and Trans Resource Advocacy Center, which isn't too far from the Intercultural Center, but it is another hub, another safe space on campus where you can show up with who you are, find like-minded people, find people who are also going to respect you and challenge you in great ways. The Q track also offers programs, and they have their own clubs and student organizations such as Saga, the student-led group, the Trans Affinity group, and there are also clubs that are focused on issues facing women in the world.
Excellent, thank you, Takara. And so you've heard from our faculty. I'll invite our faculty back to talk about how they mentor and support students outside the classroom. So you've heard about all the great work that's happening within the classroom, but because they're excellent, they're doing work with you outside the classroom as well. So please.
Sure, I'll begin. So I've had the pleasure of working in more formal or probably semi-formal capacities with students. For example, I worked with the student who organized NADI, which is the magazine that's published by students, for students. NADI stands for New and Dangerous Ideas, which I like. So I've worked with students in that capacity as well to help to select works that are considered to be social justice minded. And it could be artwork or could be poems, essays, things that express a different way of viewing society that calls out inequities and try to see a different space or create a different space. I've also had the pleasure of sort of interacting with women of color, students of color, who are women, at a sister circle event that Dr. Lambert organizes. And that's a more informal kind of space where I really I'm used to being in the front of the classroom and talking all the time. In this space, I am in the back and I just listen to what students are saying and then give input and so forth. But most of my mentorship, to be honest, comes in the form of one-on-one talking. So students coming to my office, or students wanting to meet and talk, or students outside of class, or students that I've had in class or not in classes, but they want to talk in my office. And so my office has become a space of mentoring, one-on-one mentoring.
Yes, I'll second what Professor Gentle-Spirit just said. one of the reasons I came to teach here is because the class sizes are so small that I get to know the students really well. In the kind of work I do, which is journalism and Latino studies, it's a wonderful experience because I get to basically learn along with them as I am trying to understand where everybody's curiosity is, because those are areas that where we explore, again, issues of social and environmental justice and equity. And so it's all about that conversation, right? And because the classes are so small, we get to do that. I have had students who are SOAR mentees. That's a program that Professor Lambert has started, in which we partner faculty and students in one-on-one relationships where we get to know a lot more about each other, and where we can specifically work on something the student wants to improve. So it's time management, or it's how to get into certain communities, and it could be a number of things, right? But in those relationships, we tend to work, and these beautiful friendships develop. So that's been really good. And finally, you know, this really helps in the end when we are in situations where we know the students, because when the time comes around to write a recommendation letter for graduate school, or to recommend somebody for an internship, we know exactly what the students' abilities are, and we can speak with great credibility and help place them in the right position. So all the students in journalism go through internships, and they only have to do one, but they end up doing several. So they'll come out with the experience of having been in a relationship with the faculty that's very close, but also with mentors in more formal work settings. So I'll just tell you very quickly that where I was working before 10 years ago, I was at Florida International University. And my classroom, my smallest classroom, held 45 students. And I've never had 45 students here. In fact, right now, I'm teaching a class that has 6 students in it, and my largest class has 24 students. So it's a big difference, and it makes for an incredibly different experience.
Thank you so much, professors. One of the things we just quickly want to share is that, you know, while we are working really hard to create specific and intentional support for ALANA students, students of color, we also are working on our campus climate. You know, we want to continue to support employees all across campus, so that wherever our students go, they have allies, they have people who are invested, right? This is a caring community, and we continue to build a capacity to support all of our students. So I'm going to invite Dr. Gentle Spirit to talk about the work that she's been leading with faculty.
Great. Hello again. So I am excited to talk about a program that I co-created with my colleague, Dr. Laura D'Amore. It's called our Diversity and Inclusion Fellows Program, and this is a program for faculty. In this program, we facilitate workshops that allow faculty from across the university to work on equitable teaching practices, developing equitable teaching practices, which is pretty much saying that we want them to center, we want faculty to work on centering issues of justice, racial justice, gender justice, justice around environment in their pedagogy, in their teaching. And so this is a space where faculty are examining themselves, faculty examining faculty, and thinking about how to make their teaching and their ways of being in the classroom more equitable. It is voluntary, so and that has some pros and cons to it being voluntary, but one of the good things about it being voluntary is that there are faculty who want to do it, meaning that they want to do this kind of work. And by the way, this is not only faculty of color, but it's or faculty who are minoritized, but faculty overall who want to do this kind of work. There are 2 formats. So there's a year-long format where faculty work during the fall and the spring of an academic year, doing these workshops. And then there is a summer intensive institute where we lead similar workshops, but in a more condensed way. So just finally, just to give you a sense of some of the things that faculty think about in this space, we explore structural inequalities in higher education. So we start there. We start by establishing that there are inequalities that we have inherited and that we are living in, and in many ways, sometimes we perpetuate it, and they disproportionately affect people who are already minoritized in society. We help faculty to examine race, their own gender, their own identity categories, and how that influences how they are in the classroom and how they interact with students. And we also encourage faculty to explore the realities of what it's like to be a minoritized student in a space that's predominantly white, that's predominantly heteronormative, that is predominantly, that may be transphobic. So what is it like for students who are minoritized in those identity categories being on campus and being in such spaces that may not necessarily nurture them? And that becomes the foundation of then let's develop practices that will indeed help to nurture and affirm identities that have historically been underrepresented. By the end of this summer, we would have about 53 faculty who have done this work and who are ready and who are already participating in teaching these courses and teaching their courses through this lens.
Thank you so much. And just thinking outside of the work that happens with faculty, we are a diversifying community. Our students are diversifying. Our employees are also diversifying. The proportion of ALANA or people of color employees has grown by 33% over the last 2 years. And some of the things that we've done, we have intentionally advertised in a broader range of venues so that we are attracting the diverse community. We want to represent our world on campus. All search committees have also participated in unconscious bias training. And we have put like search advocates. These are people who are trained to assist with the search process so that when bias is showing up, people can raise awareness of that. We also have a training program for staff. We call it Intercultural U. It is 25 hours. So we really do become a community. We really get to bond and become champions for the work. So it's similar to what Dr. Gentle Spirit was talking about. The work that's happening with faculty is also happening with staff. And so she just mentioned that 53 people will have completed that by the summer. 52 people have graduated from the Intercultural U program. So you can imagine that we're talking about 100 employees on campus, and we're a small campus, who have invested a significant amount of time to increase their intercultural fluency so that they can support our students and support their colleagues. We also have Safe Zone training on campus to support our queer and trans community. It is based on national best practices. It is a tiered model. The first session, which is about 90 minutes, has more than 1,000 people have gone through that. So that's students and that's employees. So really well attended, and people are really working to support all of our communities. And finally, we have affinity groups. We have affinity groups for students. We have affinity groups for employees, and people come together. It's a safe space where they can, Takara was talking earlier about bringing your full self to the Intercultural Center. The affinity groups also support bringing your full self to these spaces, as do lots of different places on campus. So the beauty of our community, of our size, is that we have alums who are concerned about our students, who are interested in supporting our students. So I would like to invite a Deputy Secretary, Melissa Husband, to talk about the work she's been leading with the Alumni of Color Group.
So over the past year, I have been trying to, have successfully been able to identify alumni of color who are interested in giving back to existing and new students of color at Roger Williams University. Many of us had experiences at the university where we did not, to be perfectly honest, have the amount of support that is being laid out today. I'm kind of jealous. And we to be able to give back to the Roger Williams community in a way that was not being done on campus. I mean, I think Ame and the faculty and staff are doing a fantastic job in all the efforts, but we felt like there was a niche that we could help with as well. And part of that niche was to help with mentoring. I recognize that there's mentoring on campus, and faculty. But I remember as a student 20 something years ago that career development mentoring was one of those things that was really important, especially when you hit your junior and senior year, and not really knowing what's going to happen to when you leave the university and you have to find a job, what that process looks like. I don't know people in Rhode Island, or I don't know people in my state that can connect me to opportunities. I also don't know what the process is to identify jobs. So we are here to support you in that process as you figure out kind of what it is you want to do after your college career. And so we're really excited to be able to make that happen. The second thing, we have a whole list of things that we're trying to do, but I wanted to just hone in on some of the bigger pieces. Access to efforts, I think what we were really identifying and finding for the students of color now, as well as when I was in school, is that when you go to Roger Williams University, especially when you're not from the state of Rhode Island, that you don't know where to go to get certain things, to have access to certain things. Like if you want to get your hair done, you're not going to get your hair done in Bristol if you're a Black or brown person. If you're looking for ethnic food, again, you're not going to necessarily find that in Bristol, but if you take that bus to Providence, you will be able to find those things. But how do you identify which organizations or which businesses are able to provide the services that you're looking for? In addition to that, I know that we've had conversations with students about identifying Black therapists and Black doctors, or Hispanic therapists and Hispanic doctors. And so we are in the process now of creating a Black book resource that will be on our soon Alumni of Color webpage, so that when students are looking for those businesses to visit, they have it at their fingertips, and they don't have to go online and try to figure that out. Another thing that we're really excited about is our AOC fund. And that fund is being designed to support students of color while they're on campus. We all know, as students in general, sometimes it's really hard to make ends meet. Sometimes when you start the semester, you don't necessarily have the money for that expensive calculator. You don't have the money to pay for your books at the beginning of the year, or you're waiting for somebody to come in to fill that gap for your tuition. And so the Alumni of Color really want to be able to provide financial support to students of color, either for emergency needs or other needs. So those are three of the things that we're working on right now. There are a lot of other efforts around networking and leadership development opportunities that we'll be doing as well. So I'm looking forward to being able to share those things with you if you decide to come to Roger Williams.
Thank you so much. And thank you for the investment in our students. We really appreciate the great work you've been doing. So I'd like to quickly talk about the Black diasporic themed community. A couple of years ago, we were at an event and students were talking about the increase in social justice opportunities on campus, and they were highly complimentary about that. And they said they all wanted to create a live and learning community where they could explore their identity. And so this is how the Black Live and Learning community started. And what's so interesting is, so we call it the diasporic themed community because we want to be clear that this is not just for African Americans. When we were establishing the community, we had talked with students who were Dominican, and we said, if we called it a Black community, would you feel like, you know, this is a place you could come to? And they said yes. And so what we find is that is truly diasporic. There are Cape Verdeans in the community, lots of Latinx folks from different identities in the community, African Americans, people from the African continent. And it's it's a space where students can be in community, where they can learn, where they can grow together, where they can challenge each other. If you're a first-year student, which all of you will be, and you're in the living learning community, you will take a class with Dr. Erin Allen. And what the feedback we get is that it really is just a lovely kind of powerful experience where students are stretched in the ways that they're supposed to be stretched in college. So as you're looking at living opportunities, if you are interested in being in an affinity community, I will highly recommend the Black Live and Learning community to you. So here's the thing. College is an investment, right? And so when you're going to college, you want to be thinking about the return on your investment and what's going to happen after you you leave college. So we have to talk a little bit about life after college, and then we'll dive into your questions. I don't see any questions yet. I hope you all have some great questions ready to go. So I'd like to invite Takara to talk a little bit about some of the partnerships with career services.
Thanks, Ame. So thinking back to some of the things that have already been mentioned, you know, how do we get you to become alumni? Thinking back to some of those high impact practices, partnerships on campus. So we do, the Intercultural Center, myself, I'm the director, and the other assistant directors partner closely with the career services to make sure that students are not only successful on campus and in the classroom, but once you graduate. So how are you going to also become successful in the world? So one thing we do are career and professional development seminars. We bring in people to share their experiences as first generation college students, or how, you know, now that they're in their roles, what should they search for, you know, key tips to search for when you're looking for jobs, or as they're interviewing potential candidates for positions, you know, what are some helpful things that they're looking for? And how are companies attracting, how are companies making their company more diverse? And to partnered with those conversations, we then run some workshops. So we focus on resume building. What does your resume currently look like? Do you have a resume? Do we need to help you build a resume? A LinkedIn review. So social media platforms are great, but how are we branding ourselves, right? So what we post on Instagram, like, it matters. What we post on Facebook, it matters. And then how do we, you know, become a little bit more professional within the LinkedIn world? And then we also host some mock interviews. So those things are important. So what are you saying on an interview? How are you showing up? How are you dressed? Did you do your research before attending the interview? And those are just some of the things we do with career services. We do them throughout the semester, the fall, and the spring, so we can make sure that we are constantly building and reinforcing these skills for students.
Thank you, Takara. And as I mentioned, we are incredibly proud of our alumnae on the call, Melissa Husband. And so I would like to invite Melissa to share a little bit about her experience and how her education has served her, but also she's in a pretty powerful position in the state, and Rhode Island is a state where connections matter. So to talk about the way she could support our students in terms of getting connected to folks in the state when they need to get a job.
Yeah, so yeah, definitely. I enjoyed my major at Roger Williams University. I was a political science major. Coming out of the south side of Providence, and coming from a public school it was a pretty difficult transition. Although I was doing law and government when I was in high school. The political science major there really set me up to be able to get a really good understanding off the ground on what I would be experiencing in the real world around politics and government. And so I took that degree and started working in nonprofit organizations as a way to be able to kind of push policy and kind of get my feet on the ground around what some of the social issues were in my own community. So I came right back to Providence to do that. And as I started my career in the nonprofit social service world, I recognized that although I was doing really great work, I really wanted to be able to make a larger difference in regards to policy. And so I decided to get my master's degree in public administration because I knew that pairing the master's with political science would put me in a position to be able to do that. I started working for a housing agency where it was, again, really important work, a lot of federal dollars that I was able to bring into the state, but I really felt like there was so much more that I could do. So over the course of many years, I ended up eventually becoming the Deputy Secretary of State for Secretary Nellie Gorbea, and I oversee elections. I oversee all of the lobbyists in the state. I oversee all the rules and regulations, which are essentially all the laws of our state. And so I'm really proud of the work that we do at the Secretary's office. I'm also just really proud to be able to say that as a woman of color and as someone who grew up in the South Side, that I'm able to make the change and the difference that I sought out to make. I'm in a position to be able to help our state in a way that that genuinely brings the perspective of those that don't usually have their voice at the table, whether that's nationally or locally. So I'm really proud to be able to have the job and to have the influence that I do. And I really did want to give back to Roger Williams University students of color in particular, because I just recall not having anyone to be able to say to me, listen, if this is what you want to do, these are some of the things that you should be doing right now as a college student. I did not have that direction. I had to figure all of it out. I had to fall over and over and over and over again and pick myself up over and over and over again with absolutely no direction and absolutely no sense of where do you start in order to get to where you want to be. And so I really felt that it was my responsibility as a successful woman. I define success very differently from however you're going to define success, but as a successful woman, like it was my responsibility to say, listen, I struggled and I don't want you to have to struggle the way that I struggled. And so whatever I am able to do, whether that's getting people internships in the state government or city government, I have a lot of relationships with mayors and different law firms and et cetera. And our alumni are so phenomenal, and they are all so connected in their own rights. Like we have attorneys, we have an alumni who's an accountant for Bulgari. We have an alumni who's a high management in L'Oreal. We have alumni who, these are our alumni of color, who are executive directors of nonprofit organizations, who have very high positions in Bank of America. So we are here to support you in any way that you need us to. And we're really excited to be able to do something that wasn't done for us. And so that is really the purpose that we want to serve for you if you decide to come to Roger Williams.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Melissa. We're so proud of you. So I'm going to turn it over to Shamika to take some questions, but I just want you to know that we are thinking about this. We're thinking about your career readiness. We recognize that the world is changing rapidly. What is automation and artificial intelligence going to do to the future? And so we're invested in your success, and we're thinking about how you can be successful in a changing world. Shamika, over to you.
Thanks, Ame, and thanks to all our panelists for sharing that lovely information with the students. So it looks like we have 2 questions that have come in that are really one question, I believe. So it sounds like, if I'm reading this correctly, students just want to know more about how they express interest in the Black LLC and then what the rooming situation is like there. So are they singles, are they doubles, et cetera, et cetera?
So, you know, your money is good with us. So if you want a single in the LLC, you pay for a single and that works. You will get a single. And when you sign up for housing, you will receive a notification to sign up for housing. There is an option to select the Black LLC then. So that is the time to sign up for it. And then, you know, ask you some questions about why you want to live in the LLC, see something great, and you'll be good.
All right, does anybody else have any questions? I think those are the only 2 that I saw there. Ame, do you have anything that you want the students to talk about?
So I'll ask the students, hardest thing in terms of transitioning, and what would you tell your younger self, your first year self?
I think the hardest part of transitioning is just getting used to a new curriculum, and then getting used to being away from home, in the sense of, like, I'm always with my mom or around my friends who look like me, and then when you go to college, it's, you know, predominantly white institution, so it's just a different environment. And then the curriculum, you're not used to. Well, I went to a technical high school, so the workload was very different for me.
What about you, Carmen?
I would agree with everything that Melissa said. And on top of that, also, like I'm a first generation college student, so like the hardest thing about the transition was, I think, just trying to figure out the college process as an entirety, which I can say that at least RWU does a great job with pairing you with people to help solve any issues. So anything from faculty that you have to staff that you come across, or just any questions that you have. I knew that like I wasn't really sure about like financial aid stuff and academic stuff, like how do you properly even send it like a proper email. So like those things you kind of pick up along the way, but I can definitely, kind of echoing what Melissa said, that it's really, it's like just kind of give yourself time to transition, because I think that's like the one of the things is getting away from your family and being like independent. It's kind of like a little daunting. So it's just like, what do you do with that independence? How do you make yourself on this campus, and how do you present yourself? So yeah, same thing with just Melissa. It's just like being away from family. I think that, and also just being a first generation college student was something that was kind of difficult for me.
Thanks so much, Carmen. We have a couple more questions that have come in. So the first one is, can somebody describe what the barbershop is like? How do students get involved with it? What do they do? What's it like to be a member of the group? Melissa, do you want to take it since you've been working with them?
I work with them mostly because some of the guys are my friends. But I think it's just a safe space for you know, our males of color to just have a space and be leaders in their own space. They have a lot of alum who come and speak. Professor Allen has come and spoken to them a few times. I think that's their advisor, right? So they have a lot of help from alum in the professional sense, and also they get to have conversations about their different interests. I think it's just a space for them. I can say that they're really close. They have like a group chat on Snapchat. They eat dinner together, so they're really close. It's kind of like a fraternity, but there's no house, there's no parties. It's just like they're a brotherhood. It's a brotherhood.
And how do students become a part of the barbershop? How do they sign up for it?
You don't sign, well, you do sign up when you go to, oh man, Carmen, help me out. It's like
The involvement
student
fair.
involvement fair.
Yeah.
So the involvement fair, you go, you check out which clubs you're interested in. You see the barbershop, you see who's there, they talk to you. You sign up, they'll send you an email when the meetings are, and then you just show up.
And if you miss that initial sign up, it's just as easy as going to finding out when the meetings are and popping by a meeting and deciding to become a part of it. So they're a pretty open and welcoming group. So the next question is from somebody who's far away. So this person says, I live on the West Coast and I'm worried about moving so far. Do you think there is a big difference being on the East Coast? Do you think it will be hard to adjust?
So I do think that it's great that you will be coming to a community. So I'm Nigerian, so I understand distance and kind of, so there will be adjustment. I love what Carmen said, give yourself the gift of time, right? But also lean on all of the wonderful faculty and students and colleagues and staff who want to support you. It is different, but you know, I remember when I moved from the Midwest to Vermont, and that first year they had record snow. It was an adjustment, but I was there for 7 years, and it grew on me, and I got to love the lake. So I think that because you're coming to a place that is like a family, you would need to adjust, but I think you will be okay.
And if I may chime in for a second on that too. Would that be okay?
Yes, please.
Okay. So again, I'm originally from Brazil, so I traveled 6,000 miles when I came to college, and I agree, it's an adjustment, and it's a huge adventure, and it's amazing, right? When you start making friends and you start figuring out how people live in a different part of the world. And one of the students in the journalism program is originally from Hawaii. And so we've had this conversation many times. She's a first-year student, and she came here by herself, and she immediately joined the Hawks Herald, the student newspaper. And so already in there, she fell into this groove with this group of people who get together every week. They do not only the work of the student club, which is to put together the newspaper, but they also go out in social events together. They go off campus together, and you just start finding people you connect with in ways that are meaningful to you. And that's what makes it home, right? It's who you're with and how you're spending your time.
If I may chime in, kind of following off of Professor Prado, what she said, I'm also an orientation advisor, so I might be seeing some of you guys in June. And I've, this is my second year doing it, so I've also had met some incoming students who have traveled far. I had a couple students who came specifically to Roger Williams for sailing from Texas. And, you know, the first thing they asked was, how's the snow? Like, and, you know, I told them you should get a big jacket, get some nice boots, and, you know, some nice winter gloves and scarves, because it does get cold and it does get windy on our campus. But you know, it was interesting because two students in the orientation group, they didn't know they were both from Texas, but they also had shared the same, you know, kind of sense of will it be okay? Like, will I be okay traveling so far? Like, how does that work for when I go back home for, you know, Thanksgiving or like winter intermission? So I think really just putting yourself out there, and you'll find that a lot of students, you'll meet a lot of students who might also be traveling far, and then just connecting with them and, you know, talking to them, how can you get home? What's the most cheapest way to get home, airfare, or just, you know, how they handle it, and even just reaching up to upperclassmen too. There's also a lot of upperclassmen from out west, so they can also give you some advice. So don't be scared, but kind of think about it in a positive way. Like, you'll be putting yourself in a new environment on the East Coast that you might have weird stereotypes that we might be, maybe because we're like Dunkin' obsessed or something like that. In Rhode Island, it's sip and dip, so which I had to learn because I'm originally from Massachusetts. So yeah, you'll find that it's going to be hard, but it'll be fun and challenging, and you're going to meet a lot of people, and you'll have that cross-country connection. So you'll find another home. That's, like, I guess that's the best way I can say it.
Thanks so much, Carmen. I think the other thing too is, like everybody said, there'll be differences. I think the person is from like California, and I would say like I have family that live there and been there. I think the East Coast is definitely more, it's not as chill. But I think, you know, you're going to be on a college campus, and you'll make your friends, and you'll adjust, and it's not like you're going to, you know, step foot into, you know, a Fortune 500 company right away in downtown Boston or Providence or something. So it's a little bit different, but it's fun and it's good. So do we have any other questions? If not, we have another presentation or video that we'd like to show you all.
Yeah, we think that the presentation really encapsulates all you've been hearing, right? We're a place that cares about students. We're a place that is about your development. And again, I want to say a big thank you to all our panelists, and turn it over to Takara to run it.
Take one look at these small hands. They're endowed with power that can move mountains. There's much more in store than we could understand. I know we can do anything. Close for those who try. Just dream to fly as eagles fly across the sky. I know we can see the rainbow around us all. Hear the angels when they call. Find a way to.
So we hope you will join us at Roger and that this is a place where you become. Thank you very much for joining us this evening. Shamika, any final words from you?
Just that we will be posting the video after we get a chance to get everything together and get it edited. It'll be up on our Accepted Student website where you can find all the other, or a number of the other sessions that we've hosted thus far. Continue to check that site because we are adding more presentations. So whether they're academic ones or ones centered around student life and support, there are presentations that we're continuing to add so that we can answer your questions. And of course, feel free to reach out to anybody here who was on the panel. Dr. Lambert is very easy to find. Her picture is on the website. You may have received an email from her. And you can connect to your admissions counselor. You know, those folks are your lifelines to campus, I guess, and they will do their best to connect you with the people on campus who can answer your questions and meet your needs. So just keep in touch with us, let us know what you need, and we will do our best. The other thing I'd like to share with you or remind you all to do is to join the Intercultural Center community on the virtual community platform Wiser. There are faculty and staff on there, alums, current students, so folks who you can continue to connect with, and also fellow accepted students, right? So these are people who you can start to get to know before you come in the fall. But with that, nothing more. We look forward to having you with us in the fall, and please let us know if there's anything else that we can do for you. Bye.